For number 18, unfortunately, we can't use the calculator here. I mean, you can, but it's such a pain to change all your window parameters to do inverses. You have to switch all of your x's with all of your y's. It's quite annoying, because really, what is an inverse? An inverse is a reflection in the line y equal x, where all of your domain values and your range values, all your x and your y values switch. Remember that arc just means inverse, so they can write it either way. Arc means the angle whose, that's what's coming out, and y equals sine -1 of x, that y means the same as what's coming out of it. Now, what is our x for our inverses? Well, these really should be memorized. These are the principal values of the calculator. When we do second sine or second cos or second tan, this is where the calculator is going to look for our angle answers, because this is where those functions are, functions are indeed functions. That's where they don't repeat. So for the sine inverse, you should know it's from -pi/2 to pi/2 inclusively. Do you see the equal signs there? Now the tan inverse is from pi/2, that should be a negative, -pi/2 to pi/2, that should be a negative as well. So from -pi/2 to pi/2, but not inclusively, because at these -90 and 90 values, the graph doesn't exist because it's undefined there. For cosine, it's 0 to pi. And if you ever look at your calculator, and you're doing something like, finding something like, I don't know, sine inverse of -1. So if I did second sine of -0.5 rather, you could see it's going to return a -30 because it's looking in the fourth quadrant for this angle, because that's where it's negative. It's going to look between -90 or 90 and search that area and go, okay, -30. So if I'm looking for the positive coterminal angle with this, it's 330 degrees. Same thing with like cosine. Let's do second cos -0.5. It's going to look for cosine between 0 and 180. Now, why didn't it return a first quadrant termination? Because that's 90, and that, in that principal value, is where the cosine is 90. Negative, rather. You see the difference? Kind of cool. Same thing with tangent, if you want to do the same thing with tangent. If you're looking up where the negatives go, it's going to look in the fourth quadrant here. So, when trying to determine coordinates on these, let's look at the sine curve, sine x. Let's do a zoom 7. The sine curve, this is our regular y equals sine x. And if I want points on the inverse curve, just pick a couple of points. We'll look between -pi/2 and pi/2, and just pick those 3 points. Well, that's -pi/2, -1. That's 0, 0. And that's pi/2, 1. Now, if you invert those points, you're still going to have 0, 0. Here, instead of pi/2, 1, it's going to be 1 pi/2. And here, instead of -pi/2, -1, it's going to be -1, pi/2. So that was the second part of the question. It wanted some inverted points. So it's hard to see here. So here are my inverted points. These are my originals. And these are my inverted points. So if I were to actually plot these inverted points, it would give me what the sine inverse curve looks like. Looks like a little corkscrew, but this is just the principal value of it. Sine inverse curve, little arc if you will, goes la 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 la, like a corkscrew, and it goes through the origin. Just make sure you always check to see if these 3 points are on that curve. Now for cosine, if you look at the original cosine curve, and I do a zoom 7, there's your cosine curve. See how it's your canyon like this. I'm going to examine it just from 0 to pi, which is right here. 0 pi/2 pi right here. So if I take those points, which is 0, 1, pi/2, 0, and pi, -1, and I invert them, instead of 0, 1, I'm going to get 1, 0. Instead of pi/2, 0, I'm going to get 0, pi/2. Instead of pi, -1, I'm going to get -1 pi. And if I just plot those points, I'm going to get my inverse. Now this one I got a little sloppy, so my apologies. So here are my original points. Here are my inverse points, which I just switch x and y. If I plot these points, and this, by the way, is going to be now 1. This is -1 because you're reversing all of your aspects. This is pi/2 here. And this is pi up here. And you just plot those 3 points to get your inverse.